If you're thinking about a move to Portland, Oregon, then you're gonna wanna check out this video. Today, we're getting into the pros and the cons right here in Portland, Oregon in 2023.
Here we are in the Pearl, so we're gonna go for a little walk. We're coming out of winter and we've got a lot to talk about.
Thank goodness. We are over winter, it's officially springtime. The good weather's here, so you're gonna come along with us today to explore a little bit of downtown. I'm Aaron Cullen, this is Brianna Cullen, and today we're exploring downtown Portland, Oregon, and we're gonna go over the pros and cons of living in Portland, Oregon. Now, Portland's been getting a lot of bad publicity, getting a bad rap lately, so we're not gonna hold back. We're gonna give you the good, the bad, the ugly.
Well,
the
today
good
it's beautiful. I wouldn't call it ugly.
It is. Today is amazing out.
The beginning of spring, our first 70-degree day, and we are here in the Pearl downtown. We're gonna walk and get a coffee and talk to you while we walk.
Yeah, so come along with us for the ride. This is the pros and the cons of living in Portland right now in the spring of 2023. Hecklers aren't gonna faze us.
We are coming out of a long, dark, cold, rainy winter, so it's hard to get us down on a beautiful day like this. So we moved here about 4 years ago from the Los Angeles area. We both spent a lot of time in the LA area. I also lived in Portland about 15 years ago in a totally different phase of life.
Yep.
And then
you were single, ready to mingle, no family life.
And then I have also lived in Orange County, California, San Francisco. I grew up in Arizona. I've spent some time in Raleigh, North Carolina. I have family in Indianapolis. So I spent a lot of time in different places, mostly on the West Coast, but also other areas of the country. And that's really what I have to compare things to.
So I have lived in New York, Kansas City, Austin, Texas, Houston, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, Los Angeles, and now Portland. And I gotta say, I love living here. We just went through a little bit of a rough winter for us. It's been 4 years in and we haven't gone on any trips in the winter. But you know what? We're gonna save that for later for one of the other cons to give you guys some personal advice on how to handle the winters here. So with that, let's jump right into our list.
I think one of the biggest pros about living in Portland is big city amenities with small town feel, small town experience.
Okay.
So right now we're in the Pearl, we're downtown. It gives you that urban feeling. There are so many different kinds of people, different styles, different job opportunities. It's really a very urban area. But there are also so many neighborhoods in Portland that each one has its own deep community feeling. It's easy to get around them. It's easy to meet people. It feels like a small town. And so to me, that combination is so hard to come by. Like, we have a great airport. We can get anywhere we need to. There's great medical care and universities and all the things that a big city offers. But then you also get this like really community feel.
Well, let's jump right over to a con, and that is
winter weather.
Winter weather. Do we want to go there? Okay, yes. All right, let's go there. Up. And here's another streetcar behind us. That is one of the pros, having access to public transportation. If you live in one of the areas, which is really like downtown or East Portland or over to Beaverton, you have great use of the MAX and the streetcars when you're down and around downtown. Having a city that has those, I think, is awesome. It's great if you're gonna live somewhere to be able to use that on a daily basis. If that's one of your top priorities, definitely reach out to me, because they don't go everywhere in the city, especially out to some of the suburbs. It's gonna be really hard to get public transportation. I've had several clients, one for example, he just moved to South Waterfront. We got a really cool condo for him, and he wanted to be able to have quick access to downtown using the streetcars. And so that's right off a streetcar line. It's like literally 1 block from his condo. So that was huge on his priority list. He has a car, but he said, Aaron, I don't want to have to drive anywhere.
He wants that urban experience.
He wants that urban experience. So you don't have to have a condo to be able to get that experience. You can still live on Southeast or Northeast Portland, but definitely reach out to me because there's only certain areas and you want to be within walking distance to the max that can get you over to the streetcars of downtown.
Yeah, while that's a pro, to Aaron's point, certain suburbs, you just really don't have any access to public transportation. And so it's very specific.
So that is a con, is public transportation. It's a pro if you live near it, but then it's a con if you live in a suburb, in an area that has very, very low public transportation access.
I think transportation in general is a mixed pro and con because there are areas where it's very easy to get around. Everything you need is right in your area and you don't have to spend a lot of time in the car. And then sometimes, like our experience getting down here today, it can be very frustrating because you have to cross multiple bridges. We actually got stuck on one of the drawbridges today and the bridge had to close up so that they could let a boat go under and you know, that kind of stuff happens. So I think sometimes getting around the city, depending on, you know, there are certain pockets that you don't want to live in if you're working on the opposite side of town. But that's true of anywhere, and I think it's also true that for the size of the city, if you choose where you're going to live and you're strategic about it for the types of things you need to be near, your work, your, you know, daily activities, that can be a huge pro. I think for us, we live in the suburbs, but I was just talking with you yesterday and saying, like, the types of activities that we do, you know, we have young kids, so a lot of it is about taking them to do things, going to ballet, going to swimming lessons, getting back and forth from dropping our kids off at school. All of that is just so easy. It's not a headache. It's actually a pleasure. Like, I love driving our kids to school because it's a 10-minute drive and it's beautiful. And so I feel like in a lot of ways, it's a pro, just the ease of getting around.
And that is the benefit of living in a medium-sized city. That is a big pro. You're not dealing with the traffic and the huge congestion of a large city. Everything you're gonna need is gonna be within your neighborhood for the most part. And then you might have a doctor's office or, you know, something that might be a little bit further outside of your neighborhood. But that also where I would stress the importance to reach out to someone like myself to be able to talk through some of the neighborhoods, and I can give you ideas to find out exactly what you're looking for, what kind of lifestyle you want, and then I can suggest neighborhoods for you guys to put on your radar to really dig into that kind of fit your lifestyle. So reach out to me. I'm a local real estate agent and I help people find the right neighborhood every day.
On this topic of pros and cons, I think it's just interesting also to mention that you've had a number of clients lately that have reached out from out of state and they've said, Aaron, I've never been to Portland, but I think we want to move there. We're coming out for a visit. And I think that's so fascinating. Like, obviously the pros in a lot of people's minds are pretty strong that without ever having visited, people think Portland might be for them. What do you think it is about it that people like are reaching out? Do you think a lot of it, in my opinion, and you're the real estate agent, so you tell me, but in my opinion, that has to do with one of the major pros, which is the value that you get for your money?
I think since COVID, people are open to exploring new things, new places, and Portland is an amazing city. I love it here, so I think maybe that comes through on these videos, that if it resonates with people, they reach out.
Yeah, we ran into people at the grocery store a few weeks ago and they said, we moved here because of you guys, because of a video that they saw. So that's true, but there's more to it than just our opinion, I'm sure.
Yeah. Which that segues into a huge pro, which is affordable housing. Now, it is all to your perspective. Everybody's perspective is different. Most people that are moving here are relocating from somewhere that is comparable to cost or a higher cost of living. And mainly that's housing. Everything else about Portland is a little bit cheaper. The taxes might not be cheaper depending on where you are. We run about in the middle of the road there, but the housing for what you get really truly is amazing. And I love the housing stock here. I recently had a client, him and his wife thought they wanted a suburb feeling, a suburb
so
experience. And so we were looking in Forest Heights, which is in Northwest Portland. It's a big suburb with big, beautiful houses. It's very hilly up in there, but you're really close to Forest Park, which is one of the largest urban parks in the country. It's just amazing hiking all through there. So they flew in, and after looking for a day at some of those houses, they quickly realized that, hey, you know what? I think we want more of that urban feeling vibe. And so they ended up buying a house in Mount Tabor, which
totally different from what they thought they wanted and what they really came looking for, which I think is such a good, like, housing is so personal, and you really do have to follow what feels right. And that was like such a great example. They fell in love with that house in that area, and they're so excited.
And that house is really cool, but it's a 100-year-old house versus a newer house that was built like 15, 20 years ago. They opted for a 100-year-old house that has a lot of character to it. The area is very flat, and they do have really good public school options right there, but everything is walking distance.
I think that's actually a pro of Portland, is the variety of, even within the city, different neighborhoods have such a different feel. Portland is divided into different areas depending on what side of the river you're on. On the west side, it tends to be a lot hillier, more trees, more greenery, closer to nature, closer to hiking and parks. And then on the east side, it's a little higher density, it's flatter, it's older, the housing stock is older, and then each of the neighborhoods within those areas have a very different feeling. And so I think it's kind of fun to know that you could live many different lives in Portland. Like I mentioned, I lived here 15 years ago. I lived in the Northeast. It was a very walkable area, a lot of cafes, bars, young people. It was very different from the area that we live in now. And I think that's a really cool thing about Portland.
Yeah, me too. I help clients all over the city, so I get to experience all these different unique neighborhoods. And I gotta say, I mean, that is one of the really, really cool things about the city, is there is something for everyone. And I really do believe that. If you like Portland, if you wanna have some of that experience of Portland, you can find your neighborhood that feels good to you, that feels safe to you, to fit your needs, but you'll still have that access to downtown, to this.
Right, like we're gonna head over here and take you to get coffee at Barista in the Pearl. And this area just feels very urban, and it's beautiful, these old brick buildings. It's very different from my daily life. And so it's fun to come down here and experience like a totally different feeling and imagine that I live in the city, I walk everywhere.
Okay, so this next con, I think this might be your biggest con.
This is 100% my biggest con, and
wait for it.
Winter weather. So this is our first 70-degree and sunny day, and it really does affect our mood so much. And I think this is a funny one because we're doing this video in April, so I'm gonna give weather as a con. But come visit us in like September and I might list Portland weather as a pro, because it's almost like you live two different lives here.
Yep.
From about November through April, it can be very gray. It's really dark in the winter. We do get a lot of rain, and you just feel a little hemmed in, especially I think this stage of life we're in where we have two small kids. So on a really dark, rainy weekend in the winter, it doesn't feel like there's a lot we can go do. If we were, if we didn't have small kids, if we were in a different phase of life, maybe we would like go out to brunch, or there would be more options. But when you have those two small kids, that rainy, dark weather is really hard on you.
Yeah.
And so I think,
you just jump in the car and go for a short car ride, east of here into the desert.
But so for me, coming out of that 6 months, the weather really does feel like a con. But now we are entering into what I think is one of the most beautiful summers in the US, the Pacific Northwest. The summers here, because of all that rain we get, right now everything is in bloom. Portland has amazing cherry blossoms blooming. Right now, the plum blossoms and the apple trees and everything is coming back to life. And the summers here are absolutely spectacular. And then honestly, for the first part of the fall and winter, I really enjoy having 4 seasons, watching the leaves change, getting a little bit of snow in the winter time. And so it feels like a pro then. It isn't until we've had like many months in a row of that it starts to feel like a con.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you feel like a totally different person right now when the sun shines versus cloudy
100%.
and rainy?
I grew up in Arizona, so I'm used to a lot of sun. I'm a Leo. I belong in the sun.
Yeah, and I was telling her this, that as soon as it's sunny out, I'm gonna forget about the winter and what a long winter it was this year, because we've been here for 4 years and this was by far the rainiest, kind of longest winter we've experienced. And part of that is also because we haven't gone anywhere.
It's our fault.
Yeah, we haven't gone anywhere. And so that is where your recommendation and my recommendation is, in the wintertime, definitely make a couple trips. If you can, definitely do one trip to go somewhere sunny. Go to Hawaii, go to Southern California. You know, go somewhere nice and sunny in the winter in like January or February. And if you can, do one in like February and then do another one in like March or early April.
Yeah, I think like you can get through the fall and the holiday season because it feels festive. But next year I've already decided that in January we're gonna go to Palm Springs. It's like average temperature 71 degrees in January.
Yeah.
So
Sounds
and then
good. I'm for that.
Spring break mid-March, we'll probably try to go to Hawaii. Taking us to another one of our favorite pros, all of the getaways that you have available to you from Portland.
Yes.
So again, the Pacific Northwest is so beautiful. The beaches along the Oregon coast are just so spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, check out this shot from our vacation last summer. We usually in the summertime go to the beach at least once or twice for a week, get an Airbnb, get a rental. It's really easy to do here and very popular for people to do. I mean, check out some of these shots. It's just amazing. There's usually not a lot of people on the beaches. They're really long beaches, so it's not overcrowded at all. Even in the high season, you still have tons of space. It's not like some of the beaches in Southern California where you're stepping over people with your cooler on holidays.
No, it is so wide open. You can see our kids can just run along the sand and jump through tide pools, and it's actually uncrowded enough that we find sand dollars walking along the beach in the morning, and it's just so beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, and then last summer we went to stay at this little part of Cannon Beach where there's a little river inlet that empties into the ocean, and right across from that, right at sunset, there was a little herd of elk that were grazing right by the river, next to the ocean. And it was so magical.
Yeah.
I mean, these are just some of the natural beauties that you have within an hour and a half. So that Cannon Beach is like an hour and a half drive here from Portland. Then you could go skiing at Mount Hood. Again, that's like an hour and a half or less depending on where you live. You got tons of river access, lake access, all of that.
The gorge along the Columbia River. This summer, at the end of the summer, we're planning on going up to the Hood Canal, which is in Washington, and there are just so many inlets on the Puget Sound and so much access to, stand-up paddle boarding. We do that here in Portland as well on the Willamette. All that access to nature and water sports, outdoor activities.
And that brings me to another pro of Portland, which is access to parks. We have over 300 parks here in Portland, and not a lot of other cities can boast that many parks and natural areas to explore. So no matter where you live, you're probably going to be walking distance to a park.
Okay, we got our coffee from Barista.
Score.
It is so good. And when I moved to LA from Portland about 15 years ago, there was hardly any good coffee in LA. And it was really hard for me because Portland has always had really great coffee. Like part of that lighter roast, fresh coffee scene really came out of Portland. And I think that in a way is symbolic of this creative core in the city and people trying new things, like the experimental quality of Portland. It's such an artistic city, and that goes to the brewing scene, the food truck culture. in a way, people really experiment and try new things artistically here, and that is just expressed in the city culture. And to me, that's a huge pro.
Yeah, I'd have to concur. This coffee is amazing.
It's so good.
It's hard for me to even pay attention.
He can't
right
even
now, 'cause
talk.
this
He's
is
not
so good.
listening.
I'm just slurping this
He's
down.
not listening to what I'm saying.
I'm refueling right now.
But also along the lines of the breweries, and then marrying that with the local getaways, is that we're in wine country here. That makes for a really beautiful surrounding area to drive through the vineyards, and then also to be able to visit local tasting rooms and go to wineries and go wine tasting. The Willamette Valley, in Yamhill County, McMinnville, Dundee, some of those places that are so well known for really great Pinot Noir.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's one of the things I love, sharing those experiences with people that are moving here and haven't had that experience yet. And one of the ways I like to do that is, and after we close, to give them a little gift certificate as like a thank you.
Oh yeah, we've sent clients to farm-to-table dinners at wineries on the outskirts of Portland. It's just such a fun experience.
I always hear the stories afterwards and they're like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. You know, thanks for sending us on that. And it's those kind of experiences. I love giving those kinds of things because it's not something you would necessarily do on your own, especially if you move here. You might not be sure, hey, which are the good wineries to go to?
Yeah, absolutely. We took clients a couple summers ago to a farm-to-table dinner at one of our favorite places, Lesher Farm,
Yep.
where they brought in a lot of great local restaurants and beer and wine, and we got to eat outside in the garden, and just such a beautiful experience to share with other people. Portland is just one of the great places for that. One of the big reasons that people do think about moving to Portland, especially from California, is schooling. So you
Yes.
know more than I do, but I'm sure people, that's one of their main questions when they're asking you which areas they should focus on.
Absolutely. The school system, it's coming down on us. This is kind of what it can feel like if you're navigating the school system in Portland, in Multnomah County. It's really hit or miss on schools that are good and some that are not as good. I would direct you to niche.com. I'll put a link down there in the description area. Check that out for the areas that you're interested in, or you could just reach out, give me a call. Because if you want to live in the city or northeast, southeast Portland, you definitely want to be more aware of which areas have the better rated schools. So that can be a con if you're living in Multnomah County in the city of Portland. But if you go out to the suburbs, that's where the school ratings, the top rated schools are. Lake Oswego, number 1. Westland, Wilsonville, number 2. Sherwood, number 3. Tigard, Beaverton, right up there in the top 6 in the state. And they're highly ranked also in the country. So you have a lot of really good options if you're looking for more of that suburban feeling, that more suburban lifestyle.
You'll want to know if you're moving here, this street looks like you would pronounce it couch, but it's actually cooch. So, word to the wise. This has been the pros and cons of living in Portland.
And it's Willamette, which rhymes with damn it. Easy way to remember that. If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. My information's right down there in the description area. And you know what? Pause the video. I'm shooting up my number. Just go ahead and give me a call or shoot me a text right now. Okay, everybody, I'll see you on the next one.